Welcome back to the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. Thanks for bearing with us. In the studio, Sanfronia Thompson, Representative, State Representative. Sanfronia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me come.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a giant in this Texas State House. I mean, are you the longest serving woman, the longest serving African American in the history of the House?
I am.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yes.
That's a big deal,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They're going to be able to rename the building the Sanfronia Thompson building,
I don't know
right?
about that.
So, as a significant political leader in our state, for you, when you think about your history in the House, I mean, what's the most important leadership lesson for you that you've learned throughout your time there?
Well, well, one of the biggest things I learned was when we deal with issues that impact the state, the partisanship goes to the wayside because the issue becomes the dominant factor.
Yeah.
And you're working with persons of different ideas and philosophies, and you're trying to come up with the best piece of legislation you can that would do the greatest good for the greater number of individuals within the state.
Yeah. Having worked with you, I believe that, but with you, but there are a lot of politicians that you have a hard time believing that. Do you find? But you still speak highly of them, don't you?
Well, because I
work
with them. I work with them, and I get to know them.
Yeah.
And I just think it's the greatest opportunity in the world to be able to work with persons of different ideologies and from different backgrounds, because each person brings a piece of knowledge that maybe you haven't been exposed to that factors into the equation of solving a problem.
Yeah. Explain for someone who might not know how, even as a Democrat, you still are one of the most powerful people in the House. How does that work when people think that everything is so partisan? How does it work that as a Democrat you can still be one of the most powerful people?
Well, I don't know how by being one of the most powerful persons, but I've had desk mates. Most of my desk mates have been Republicans. And I have just learned over the years of working with people and working just with the issues and trying to convince them to my ideology or philosophy on a particular piece of legislation, and they do the same thing. Now, I don't underestimate the situation that there are times that they have to vote on things that really impact their district that may not impact mine.
Right.
And they vote against me and I vote against them, but we don't lose friendship over that.
Yeah.
We work together because we know that each one of us come with a set of problems to try to solve for the constituency that we represent. And I respect that, and they learn to respect that as well. And I think that makes for a good relationship and good working conditions.
Yeah. I have been watching this campaign this year and seeing ads on TV, and a lot, I know one of the things that you and I have worked together on is the fight against human trafficking, right?
Yes.
And I see a lot of politicians using the fight against human trafficking as like they're running victory laps. Everyone's running a victory lap. And I think all the time, Representative Thompson was the one who should be running those victory laps. But I mean, you don't have the same campaigns. How does it feel good when you see people using that campaign, or do you question it? What do you think when you see that?
Well, sometimes I do kind of scratch my head and say, where were they when we needed them to do this, that, and this or other? But I'm watching it.
Yeah.
So when we go back and start asking for funding, I want to remind them of the great support and the great belief that they have in helping to stamp out human trafficking and see whether or not we can get their cooperation continuously on that.
Yeah,
as well.
That's the way to do it, right?
Yes.
Because I do see these ads. I mean, have you seen the same
too.
thing? I mean, it seems like it's the flavor of the day, right?
Yeah, I have to take a second look and say, what?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
it's an interesting thing. Talk about growing up, Sanfronia. I mean, did you grow up here in Texas?
I did. I was born in Booth, Texas.
Booth, Texas.
It's a city in Texas about that big. It's near Richmond and Rosenberg. It's just like the Third Ward or Midtown from downtown, a little pocket of town around Richmond and Rosenberg. My grandparents were sharecroppers in Booth, Texas, where I was born. And then early in my life, we moved to Houston with my great-grandmother, who was an entrepreneur. She was illiterate, but she was a great businesswoman.
Yeah.
She ran a rooming boarding house, and she took in side washings if she liked to.
Yeah.
if she wanted to. And she made a pretty good living at it. And she made such a good living at it, she employed one of her children, her adult children, to work for her. And I had an opportunity to stay with her. I was one of the many grandchildren she had. She was a mother of 16 children.
Wow.
And
wow.
my grandmother was the oldest of the 16 children. And later, my grandmother moved from Booth, Texas to Houston, and she bought a tract of land in Northeast Houston where I still live,
Yeah.
on the street that I still live on.
Wow.
And I grew up there. I'm a product of the Houston Independent School District.
Yeah.
I went to Texas Southern, Prairie View, and the University of Houston.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
And were you the first one in your family that went to college?
I was.
Yeah.
I am. I am the first one.
And how was that for you? I mean, I was the first generation college student myself, and it was sort of eye-opening. I mean, how was it for you?
It was tough because, you know, in going to college and coming from an African-American school,
Yeah.
and the state at that time, like they are now,
Yeah.
did not put a lot of resources in my schools.
Yeah.
And we had literally had to wait until the white schools were through with the outdated books to come to my school for us to be able to learn from outdated material, to read, to write, to math, and things of that nature. And it put you back a little bit because there was no early childhood, there was no pre-K, and there was no kindergarten.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
my
yeah.
grandparents who reared me were illiterate, and they could never help me with my homework. But I had a brother who was older than I, was very smart, just a genius, and he helped me with my homework. And but he got discouraged in middle school and dropped out of school. But I went on, and then I later after high school, I married. I had children, but my husband said, "You got to go to college." And I said, okay.
Oh, wow.
And I went to, and he sent me to college.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, that's good to have that encouragement
Yes,
too, right? That
yes,
was really good.
yes.
What was your first leadership experience for you? I mean, was it high school, college? When was the first time that you had a sort of significant leadership
I
experience?
became a teacher.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a dentist. That was my heart's desire, to be a dentist.
Wow.
But at that particular time, when I wanted to be a dentist, I had to go to Tennessee because I was African American and I couldn't go to a school here in Texas
Yeah.
because of my ethnicity. And my husband told me, he said, listen, I have 5 nieces that teach at school and they do good, and you need to be a teacher too. So I ended up teaching school.
Wow. How long did you teach?
I taught school for about 10 years, 10 and a half years, before I ran for the legislature.
Wow. And did you win the first time you ran?
I did.
Wow.
It was the year of the woman. That
Yeah.
was the year that Sissy Farenthold ran for governor.
Yes.
And then a lot of women, like today, started running for office. And Barbara Jordan had already kind of blazed the trail and,
Yeah.
and been a big, big encouragement for women to be able to say, I can do it too.
Yeah. Wow. And you ran in the North Forest School District is
Yes.
where you ran.
Where I grew up.
Yeah. And how many terms have you been up there now?
This is my 23rd term.
Yeah. That's significant, Safroni, right?
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And
Yes, it is.
It's fantastic.
I'm grateful for the people to allow me to go and represent them each session of the
Yeah.
legislature.
And have you ever had other ambitions politically over those 23 terms? Have you thought about Senate? Have you thought about
I did.
mayor or anything like that?
No, I never thought about the mayor.
Yeah.
I thought about the Senate, you know, and I thought about maybe Congress. And then, you know, in watching Congress, I said, oh, no, that's not for me. Looked like they never are able to really get things done fast enough.
Yeah.
And in the State House, you know, you can get things faster,
Yeah.
accomplished faster than you can at the national level.
You talked about this idea of getting along with your peers even across the political aisle.
Yes.
And I remember when I started going to Austin, and I would see you, I would see Leticia Vanderpute,
Yes.
and I remember everyone had very kind words for people across the aisle. And it was almost a little surprising, right? That in the news you see all this political rancor, but up close and personal, everyone seemed to get along. It seems like that's sort of a leadership style that the rest of the world should be aware of a little bit.
Well, I think so too, because, you know, the bottom line is you have to get along in order to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And there are times that, you know, that people can wrinkle you, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, you think about, you know, if I have to get on this person good, it's going to take Jesus coming off the cross to get me off of him, you know. But the bottom line is you try to find a way to work with them, you know. I have this leadership role as the calendars committee.
Yes.
And in that particular
That's
role,
pretty powerful, the calendars committee, though, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
And because we set about 81% of the bills, both House and Senate, to come through that committee. But I have to keep a lot of secrets because my committee members tell me a lot of secrets, and I'm telling you, they're kept for life. I can't ever tell them.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow. And that's powerful, though, isn't it?
it's powerful, but I never blackmail anybody with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a person. If someone disagrees with my legislation, they oppose it, I don't get upset about it.
Yeah.
I like to listen to what they have to say about it because I get another point of view that maybe I didn't know about, I was not aware about, or hadn't researched enough on, and to get their opinion and their ideas are invaluable to me.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed about the leadership style of political leaders is that sometimes you could tell the quality of a political leader by their staff, right? The quality of their staff. You and I have both known people that you and I would think they should be great leaders, and then they don't have a good staff, right? And you've always had these great staff members. Talk about your leadership style within your own sort of that close group around you, your staff.
Well, I have a kind of staff that listens, which is significant.
Yeah.
And then we try to see what they try to see what the problem is, and then how we can solve that problem, how we can help that person cut through the red tape, how we can help to be able to accomplish things that they need to be able to accomplish. And I've always had people that want to come and work for me, even if it was for a lower salary, because the house doesn't pay very much.
Yeah.
I think I have one person that's been with me for 45 years.
Yeah.
And I have my chief of staff and also has been with me over 30. She came as a high school student, and then I had another person who was there about another 20 years, 25 years, 27 years, and they just stay a long time. And it's not so much of me as much as they like the political system, and they feel like that they are contributing something to the people that we serve.
Wow. Wow. All right, let me go to the Twitterverse and see what students are writing in. So Ruth Delani wants to know mission, core values, vision. Give us your thoughts about mission, core value, and visions, and how that plays into your work.
Well, my mission is always, after listening to my constituents,
Yeah.
what are their issues? And your core values is, you have to have integrity. You have to have believability. You need to tell the truth to the people, and then you need to stand for something. And those are the things that I believe very strongly.
What would your friends say that you stand for?
I think that it's great integrity.
Yeah.
Great truth and believability.
Yeah. What is when you think about your long career to date, what's been maybe the most important piece of legislation or pieces of legislation that your biggest accomplishments in your legislative career?
Oh, with over 500 and some odd bills.
I know.
And so many amendments and things. I think when I look back, I think about being able to do a lot of with the child support legislation and flagging the Children Flagging Act, and things that impact children and seniors, and education. I've done a lot of things in education and all, and just things of ordinary things. It reminds me of when Viagra came out.
Yeah.
The insurance company never had to pass legislation for that. They just automatically added in as something that they paid for. But contraceptives they wouldn't pay for women.
Yeah.
And I had to pass a bill to stop redlining in the bedroom. And that was just it seems to me things that really impact women, you always have to pass legislation for it. Another example, I passed the HPV bill, a human papillomavirus bill, and that was a bill that I thought that I was going to, the senator made me so angry with this bill because he was holding it up in the Senate. And I told him, I said, let me tell you something. If you don't get up off this bill, you're about to see your maker. Because that is a piece of legislation that detects early cervical cancer in women, and it saves the woman's life.
Right.
And it was so critical. And he was just being he was just being difficult. And I was just at my last. I mean, I had been dealing with him for several days, and I was at my wit's end. And I told him, I said, "Listen, you're about to see your makeup if you don't get up off this bill."
Did he get up off the bill?
Oh yes, he did. He did. I was serious because I think he recognized the gravity of my voice, the gravity of my feelings.
Yeah. Wow. Emily McGovern wants to know, what are the ways that you help those around you grow into great leaders, whether they be sort of younger legislators you're working with or staff members? How do you help young people around you grow into the leadership?
You know, the interesting thing that I have encountered over my tenure in office, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they always come to visit me.
Yeah.
When they are freshmen.
Yeah.
They'll come and ask me, "Miss Thompson, may I come to visit you?" I said, "Sure." And they always want to know the ropes, how to conduct themselves, what to expect in leadership and all. And I have appreciated the opportunity of being able to share those things with them. It's not that you want credit for something, but you want to be able to help someone to be able to get on the right track when they're starting out. And if they happen to slip somewhere down the road, to go and help them up if you can, because some people don't want you to help them, but there are others who will, and give them a hand and not let them, fall into dismay and just say, "Well, that's good for them. They're a Republican. They ought to have it." I try not to see. I try to help them and say, "Listen, you need to do this and that and that so and the other." And sometimes they'll get on the floor and they have a bill and they start stumbling, and I go up there and stand beside them or stand behind them and give them a little coaching.
Yeah.
Just to let them know that that you can do this, and you need to think about this, and you need to answer this and answer that a certain way.
I've seen you do that. I've seen you also, that we've invited you to a press conference and you bring along a colleague, a younger colleague. Have you seen some of those people grow into significant leaders, and you're just really proud because you've helped them along?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, and I'm very proud. I help the speaker a lot.
Yeah.
The last speaker.
Joe Strauss?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when he's up there, sometimes when persons are presiding, and they don't have the feel of the House, and what wisdom and experience does is give you an opportunity to observe certain things. And I could tell sometimes that things were going awry, and I said, I go and tell him, "Mr. Speaker, I think you need to close this House down." I said, "Things are about to get out of hand." And several times he listened. And he said, he thanked me for it,
That's got to be invaluable to sort of a Republican leader, to have a significant Democrat come in and just sort of giving a little bit of advice. Right?
But I don't just run up on the podium.
Right.
I just do it very quietly, very nonchalantly, and I just said, "May I make a suggestion?"
Yeah.
I don't say, "You need to do this." I just, "May I make a suggestion, please? I'm noticing the feel of the House tonight, and it's not where we need it to be. And I think it would be best if you would consider, shutting it down."
During the last legislative session, so sticking with this theme, during the last legislative session, there was a group of members in the House, a caucus, that just really was disruptive. They didn't seem to be working towards good government. Did that drive you crazy when you saw it? Didn't.
No, it did not, because I know that was their role.
Yeah.
That's what they were intending to do. And there were times that I worked with them on a few things,
Yeah.
But that was their role. I used to sit back and laugh at them because it tickled me how they would do, what they were doing.
You have a lot of patience, don't you?
Well, you have to have it,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, It could be really entertaining at times.
Yeah. Wow. Nakia Holmes wants to know, can you name a person who's had tremendous impact on you as a leader?
Yes. I can. I can name a teacher who has had a great impact on me. Was one of my science teachers, who is still alive. She's almost 90. A lady named Doris County. She was very influential with me.
Tell me how she was influential.
She was my high school science teacher, and I went to Booker T. Washington High School.
Yeah.
And she would always make you feel as though you really had it in you. And she would come in and she said, "Synfronia, we got a test today, and nothing under 95. And she would say, Dr. Sanborn, test nothing under 98. She would just, and you look at it, she said, oh, you can do it now. I know you can because I've been listening to you in class. I've been hearing how you've been answering questions, and you got it in you.
Wow.
She was always just so encouraging. There was several persons in the legislature. There was a guy named Fred Actors who was Republican. He had a great impact on me when he was there, and there were other people in the legislature. I can't. The names don't come to my mind at this particular time, but they would just drop morsels of knowledge and information to you and would help you, not looking for anything in return. Just mentioning things to you. You learn things from them.
Yeah. Stuff that you're doing now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just trying to help people along and try to help people be successful. So Michael Martin wants to know, when you look at your career, what about your leadership style has changed and why?
I think when I first went in, my first session, as most new legislators, you go in with the idea that you have all the answers and you're going to resolve all the problems in that very first term, until you realize that you have to work with people to get what you want done. And maybe what you want done may not be on their particular agenda, and you have to learn how to work with people. And you have to figure out ways to work effectively with them. But more importantly, you have to work with them with integrity and honesty.
It's interesting. It's this idea of integrity and honesty. So many people don't put that as something that they see in a lot of public officials, but you have actually made that really work for you as a leader.
Yes.
Yeah. It's,
yes. And it's the same thing about a lobbyist when they come and talk to us. If a lobbyist wants to lose favor with a legislator, they lie. And they're not believed anymore.
Yeah.
They're not believed anymore.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear that. It's one of the reasons I think that we're successful in the legislature is because we come and we just give people the truth, whether they want to hear what the truth is or not.
And sometimes the issue changes. Sometimes the information changes. But you go to the person, you tell them, hey, I promised to vote for this, but I got to change my position because of this, that, thus, and so, and the other.
Wow, interesting. Kamaria Swan wants to know, your attendance at historically black schools, universities, did that give you a leadership training any different from leadership training that schools with different demographics might have provided for you?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
Except I went to University of Houston and I got a Master's of Law degree. And I learned a lot, but I had a lot of experience by that time also. That was in the 90s when I went there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that opportunity. But I can tell you in working with a diverse body of legislators, I learned a lot from all of them. The good, the bad, and the indifferent.
Yeah. When you think back, I mean, when we see the research, say on high schools, and we know that there's so much peer learning, we know that integrated high schools, students just will do better, especially students who come in academically a little less prepared. I mean, it's the reason that we integrated in this country, right? Do you worry sometimes when you see schools sort of reintegrating? Resegregating? Yeah, sorry.
I do worry about it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of time, we talk a lot about education and we say, well, we got to do something about education. We have these poor mothers with these kids stuck in these poor schools and we feel so sorry for them. But the state created those poor schools. And they have never done anything to bring those schools back up to par. Our schools should be not dependent upon a zip code. It should depend upon quality. Because what is the end product of all of this? We want to be able to have an educated workforce. We want people to be able to have occupations. We want people to be able to enjoy the aesthetics of life, to pursue happiness, to enjoy of knowledge and wisdom, and to be able to reason and contribute to the educational, to the human race, contribute to society, and not be a liability. How do we do that? We educate people. And we cannot educate people if we don't provide the quality of education for them.
Wow.
And that's why we push so hard, and you do too.
Yeah.
Early childhood education, which is critical.
Yeah.
Pre-K, critical. kindergarten critical, very critical.
Yeah. I sometimes think, and I know I'm optimistic, but I sometimes think that things are changing in that regard, that when you have a Republican governor say, we really should have more pre-K in our state, and you hear more around high quality early education, child care, I know we haven't turned the corner yet.
I'm optimistic too.
Yeah,
I
right?
really am. I'm optimistic because each time that I think that I go back and more persons are singing the same tune from the same chorus,
Yeah.
I think that we are making some progress.
Yeah. And we hit our heads against the wall sometimes,
Yeah,
right? But
absolutely.
But I think it's
absolutely.
slowly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot.
Yeah.
And we're learning more and more about the human individual. Studying the brain gives us more knowledge and information
Yeah.
and wisdom. And then not only do we want to educate that child, but we want to educate that family.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you give a child a wonderful experience at school, but they go back to a dysfunctional family and then it's all lost. And then you wonder, what is causing this family to be dysfunctional and how can we help this family to be able to help themselves so that they can be able to help their child and their child can develop and become the individual that they can become and contribute to society like they would like to contribute.
Yeah. Do you feel like, you and I are both confronted with data and we see a lot of things that would make many people sort of feel like there's no hope. But this idea of optimism, is this a big part of your leadership style and your personality, this idea of always be an optimist, that it's going to work out?
Well, my grandmother used to have a saying, God don't move the mountain, just give me the ability to climb. And I think that's what we're talking about. It's going to work out because we feel like that there's an opportunity still, that we can still make it work. There are still things that we can do that make it to be able to accomplish those goals.
Yeah.
We don't want the mountain to move, just the ability to be able to come up with the resources and things to move that mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we keep working at it, don't we?
Absolutely.
Let me take one more question, then I want to ask a couple of fun questions, but I need to figure out which question I'm going to ask. Let's see here. Tisha had a good question around the criminal justice legislation. Do you feel like we can have an effective juvenile justice or an effective justice system in our state? I mean, do you have hope there?
I do. Yeah. Last session of the legislature, we did something for adults by being able to eradicate some of the Class C misdemeanors.
Yeah.
But I think we should increase that. And I think we should increase it in other areas also and in higher levels. I think that there are so many things that are tied to the juvenile justice system that we have to work out. And I think there, again, is a lot of hope. And we're working toward those things. We're working toward how are we able to handle these kids. And that goes to the quality of education. Everyone is not cut out for college. We know that. But can we put the resources and those programs in the schools and things that would attract those kids to come in and want to be able to do something? If a kid is coming out and they can make $85,000 a year, they're not going to stand on the corner and sell dope, or they're not going to go and rob somebody.
Right.
Because they are respectable.
Yep.
And they are being able to have things that they want because they have the income that be able to get those things. And I think that we can do something about it.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? College isn't for everyone, but it's for a lot more people than are going to college today in Texas, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out how to get it more reasonably cost efficient where they can afford to go.
Yeah. So a couple of fun questions for you. Your favorite restaurant, Sinfronia in Houston?
I like to go to Pappas Seafood on Shepherd. That's my favorite restaurant.
You like that place?
Oh yes, and I go to the Breakfast Club where Councilmember Davis. Yeah, I go to the Breakfast Club. Not often, because the food sometimes it sticks to me where I don't like for it to stick. But it's very good though.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I always get a hug whenever I go there too.
Yeah.
So
well, I tell you one thing, eating pancakes and I like the green onion eggs and green onions with the fried fish is very good. But waffles are very good too.
Yeah, yeah. I go for the catfish and grits.
Yes,
You know,
I like the catfish and grits
yeah,
too.
yeah. It's one of my favorites. I was in San Antonio 2 weeks ago doing with a group of graduate students from this class, and we were talking about leadership. And I talked to Joaquin Castro.
Oh, good.
And I asked him about our state and leadership. And I wonder a similar question for you. Are we going to have an African American or Latino governor in the state of Texas before we have another African American or a new Latino president in the United States? I mean, what's going to come first? Are we going to have another president, or will we get a governor?
Well, that's what it looks like. We might get a Latino governor first.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it looks so real.
Yeah.
However, we never know. At the national level, that might be an opportunity to get one at the national.
Do you have
level.
a favorite in the national campaign coming up so far?
I do
it's
not.
Probably safe for you to
No,
not.
I do not.
And even if you did, you're not ready. I mean, it's very early though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes, it
very
is. And all the candidates hasn't come forth.
Yeah.
I know Joe Biden has been talking a lot, and he's done a lot for women.
Yeah.
When he was senator, he did a lot of.
Do you like him?
Yeah, he was a nice person, but there are so many people to like,
Yeah, yeah.
And then there are some we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah. A lot that we haven't
Oh
even
yeah,
seen.
absolutely,
I think.
absolutely.
Do you think Oprah will run?
No,
Yeah,
she said
okay.
she doesn't want to run.
She'd win automatically, I would think.
I think she would.
Yeah. So, and then final question: when you look at work-life balance, do you feel like you have, Representative Thompson, work-life balance?
I do, because I like being a legislator because I can get a lot of things done for a large number of people.
Yeah.
But that pays $12 a day. On a base, if I average about 30 days a month, I make $12 a day. So I have an income. I have to have an income. So I work to be able to support myself. And I'm a widow, so I have to have an income.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think about sort of free time, how do you spend a lot of your free time?
Well, I make jewelry.
You do?
Yeah, I make jewelry. I have grandchildren I spend some time with, and I have a sister that I visit a lot. She and I visit a lot with. She's in a nursing home, but I visit a lot with my sister, and I have other families. And then I get a chance to go to the opera occasionally.
Yeah.
I go to the ballet occasionally. I go to hear lectures and things, and I go to conferences because I want to go to those things that I can learn from. I don't like to go to conferences if it's just going to be, I'm just going to be partying with somebody,
Yeah.
If it's something that I'm benefiting from, knowledge that I need to acquire, I want to go to those conferences.
Wow.
If it just, I'm just going to see some friends I haven't seen in a long time, that's such a waste of my time.
Yeah. This will be my absolute last question.
Okay.
You have, I took a group of people to Cuba, and you're like, oh, I wanted to go on that trip.
Absolutely, you left me out, left me behind.
You're gonna. But when you think of the places you traveled, what's been the most interesting place that you've traveled to?
Oh, let me see. I've been to Moscow.
Oh wow.
Russia was beautiful.
Yeah.
When I went to Moscow, I tell you what, Turkey.
Wow.
And this what made it interesting to me. I've been to Israel twice. Turkey was interesting to me because it had so many religious areas that I was able to travel and see.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to go to Ephesus.
Yes.
To see the Euphrates River, to go to places where Abraham lived. And when I went to Ephesus, I was able to go to the Mary, the mother of Jesus, home where she lived and died.
Wow.
And it was very interesting, but it was not all religion. It was all of the religion and the culture of that time that you were able to learn from. And Turkey was beautiful. I didn't know they had 7 and 8 star hotels over there.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting thing. In this group that I was in, there was a guy named Paul Newman. And we went to one city, and they gave him a suite because they thought he was the real guy. But the interesting thing also about Turkey, it was extremely hot.
Yeah.
And you couldn't hardly get over 2 or 3 little cubes of ice in your water.
Oh, really?
And everywhere you went, they serve you hot tea. I said, don't they know this is 110 degrees outside? They're giving me a hot boiling cup of tea. But that was very interesting. And I had a chance to go to South Africa also, which is
Yeah.
also a beautiful country. But Turkey had the religious history that it was just phenomenal.
Yeah. I've only been to the airport in Turkey. I've never really been to Turkey. I've been to Israel and Egypt, but I've never been to Turkey.
The Aegean Sea and all of the oceans and things,
Yeah.
it's just, the water looks turquoise, just like a canvas that
Yeah.
where you see it's painted. It looks for real, just like
Wow.
that. People were very nice. I met a physician over there. He had us over for breakfast one morning, and he comes to America to do heart surgery.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Representative Thompson, thank you so much
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
your
Thank you.
leadership. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So appreciate it. Hey, that's it for the Leadership Studio today. We'll see you next time. Keep up the great work. And listen, if you're in North Forest, you want to vote for Sophronia Thompson as well, right?
Please do.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you next time.